Hello! So I have been kind of nervous about this video, basically because it centres around a figure of controversy, Alex Day. At the time of the allegations against Alex Day, he had been someone who I had quite admired on YouTube for the sort of transformation he made in his life and where he had gotten himself to both professionally and personally, and it then came as a big shock with all this stuff coming out, and I just didn't talk about it publicly at all. I sort of just tried to ignore it completely, which is one option, but it wasn't the best option for me because I could never really put any of it behind me. It's a weird thing when someone who you consider a role model suddenly turns into something that you kind of detest. So I'm going to address this as analytically as possible and try to put my personal feelings aside, because I do still think there's an awful lot interesting about him, even if he isn't necessarily, the go-to person for YouTube stuff anymore. The kind of prompt for this video was when I was asked by a friend why I was subscribed to him. That prompted two things. First of all, for me to actually push creating this video, and second of all, for me to consider my privacy settings and on subscriptions, not because I feel like I have anything to hide, but because I don't want people asking questions about things that I actually consider personal and that I hadn't realised was public. I wanted to explore first of all the notion of what subscribe means, because I feel like, and I don't know if it was intended in this way, but the question, why was I subscribed to him, was kind of an accusation. It felt a bit like an accusation, and like I should feel really guilty about something that I hadn't even changed. Like I found out I was still subscribed to Tom Milton the other day. I didn't realise I was because he hasn't put up a video, obviously, since the allegations came out about him. I guess I wanted to address that. So subscribe to me can mean two things. The first one is actually just following somebody's content as it goes online, as in receiving updates as it goes online. That's what most YouTube subscriptions are. They are just receiving an update that somebody has posted something. But then you have the other type of subscribe, which is subscribing to someone's ideology and their thoughts, and I feel like that is the one that is more problematic because it is impossible to measure it, and it isn't the category that I've fallen into with Alex Day, especially not of late, but towards the end of what could be considered his YouTube career, it was the sort of subscribe I would have put myself into a bracket of, the way I do for a lot of YouTubers still. But since then, the whole subscription process for people around different YouTubers, it has changed a lot. How much you trust someone and how much of what someone shows you, it really has altered in the public sphere, and a lot of YouTubers can now be seen as personas of the character they've created for themselves rather than a kind of truth of that person. I hope that makes sense. We're not looking at a reality show, and even if we were, reality shows are filled with people who put on a face for the camera. In this video I want to address not who Alex Day now presents himself to be, because I now no longer believe, especially with him, that it is possible to figure out who he is based on the content he's putting up. But I thought I would look at what he presents to the world and how it is accepted by the general public. So rather than go for a get off YouTube Alex Day sort of stance, I want to just look at what he's putting up on YouTube instead. As of the weekend just gone, I did my little fact checking. His new channel, The Daily Day, I have my figures written down along with all of my notes for this video, has 15,000 plus subscribers. So those are all new subscribers since May when he launched the channel. His newsletter has over 3,700 subscribers. Again, all new since he came back to YouTube after the backlash against him. And his Patreon account, and this is the one that I find most interesting, because subscribers aren't necessarily viewers, but people who support a user on Patreon, a creator on Patreon, are following them with their wallets. They are supporting them with their money. So I found that interesting because that is where you see the kind of true fan base, which for Alex is 77 people paying $557.10 per month between them, which is a lot of money to give to someone who was publicly outed as being emotionally manipulative in relationships, who lost a lot of respect from people, I should say, and I suppose for, and whose subscribers on his first channel dropped below the 1 million mark very shortly after he'd hit the landmark. So I wanted to kind of ask a few kind of key questions in a non-judgmental way. I'm not attacking people over whether or not they have an answer to this or what their answer is. And I don't even know if I'm looking for answers, more just want to put the questions out there. The first big one is, why are people subscribed to him at all? Because given his background, you would think a lot of people would just completely avoid him, but he does still have a relatively loyal fan base, even if it is significantly smaller than it had been. And I think a lot of it might fall into the content that his new channel creates, or that he's putting on his new channel, which is all mindfulness and meditation content, which is important for a lot of people. And I think it might just be that he's a familiar face, so the content that they are looking for happens to be coming from someone who they enjoy listening to, and it doesn't necessarily say how much they trust him as a person or how much they like him as a person. They might just like his content. It does then raise the other question of, are people willingly ignoring the accusations made against him in favour of the content that he is producing now? But the big question is, why do people support him financially? Because, as I said, it's not just, they're not paying with their attention anymore, they're not paying with their time. That's what they pay every single YouTuber with that they're subscribed to. They're paying with their wallets, and that goes a lot further than watching a video. Aside from the financial point of view of ads on a video don't make someone as much money as if someone was just giving them money every single month for doing what they're already doing. So I found that interesting, and I'm not sure I know the answer as to why someone would support someone who has a fairly dodgy background, but I'm not going to judge someone for that, and I don't want to attack Alex over that, because he was within his right to create a Patreon account. People within the right to spend their money supporting him, and whether or not he is liked or accepted by the general YouTube community is a whole other issue. The thing for me is the content that he's producing. I think that is what gets a lot of attention from people. Tim Ferriss, who Alex actually interviewed, and it was through an interview that I found out about Tim Ferriss, runs a podcast, and on his podcast he frequently brings up the point that the top performers in their field generally practice some form of mindfulness and meditation, be they financial brokers or governors of California. And I think the importance of the content is what is driving people to his channel. And I think if someone has a problem with that, they either need to find somebody who is approachable in the same demographic as Alex, or just stop complaining about it. I want to finish with kind of 3 big questions that I don't actually have answers for. I'm not going to attempt to answer them. I'm just going to ask them outright. So the first one, and I am interested in your opinions on these, can someone reinvent themselves? Looking beyond YouTube persona, is he actually reinventing himself? Should we accept somebody's self-improvement mission regardless of their past and whether or not we like them? And third, at what point do we separate the content from the creator and sort of just allow channels like his to exist without any judgment on who he is as a person? So I'll be interested in your opinions on that. You can leave them in the comments. If you like this video, click like, and if you want to see more like this, or things that are usually a bit more fun, like my DuCon video that I made for last week, then subscribe. I do generally try to make things fun, and I do vlog stuff. See you next time. Bye! Last weekend myself and my friend Matt went up to Belfast. It was a 7 o'clock bus up to go to see CubeCon.